This is the first video tutorial I'm going to show you how to make one of the projects in my brand new yarn, Be So Wild. It's a two ball project. I already wind the yarn into a center pull ball when you buy it, and this one was done in batch number 1, and I'm going to show you how to do it with batch number 2. This is a yarn that I make in very limited quantities. I make it all by hand. I take beautiful luxury wild yarns and mix them together and wrap them with a silk thread so that they become one continuous yarn. So for this particular shawl, we're going to use a size 10 knitting needle, and we're going to cast on 3 stitches. So first we want to start with a slip knot. You want to wrap the yarn around your fingers, pull the loop through the loop, and tighten it up onto your needles. Okay, and then we're going to cast on 2 more stitches. Okay, so now we have 3 stitches on our needle. We're going to knit into the front and back of the first stitch. So we're going to insert our hook in the front and knit a stitch, but before we pull the loop off of our left hand needle, we're also going to knit into the back of the same stitch. Okay, then we're going to knit 1, and then we're going to knit into the front and back of the last stitch. So we're going to knit 1 into the front, and then before we drop the stitch off of our left hand needle, we'll then knit into the back side of it as well. Okay, so now we have 5 stitches on our needles instead of 3. We've increased 1 stitch on each side. So for the back row, we're going to, working on the wrong side, we're going to knit the first stitch, move our yarn to the front to now purl every stitch across to the last stitch, and then we'll knit the last stitch. I'm going to show you what we're actually doing now on the finished shawl. Let me pull it up from the point. So this is a triangular shawl, and it looks like we do all sorts of fancy stitches, but I'll explain that to you at the end. What we did to start now is we cast down our 3 stitches, and then in the first row we increased, starting to form our V on either side, and then we did a purl row so that we started our stockinette base in the center. Okay, so now we're going to make our shawl grow up from the bottom point of the triangle, and we're going to do that by repeating the last 2 rows the whole entire time. We're going to knit into the front and back of the first stitch, and then we're going to knit across to our last stitch, and then knit into the front and back of that last stitch. So now we should have 7 stitches on our needles. We're going to turn our work, and we're going to knit the first stitch. Then we're going to move our yarn to the front so that we can purl every stitch across to the last stitch. And then we'll knit the last stitch. And those are the 2 rows of the pattern. So this is all you need to do to repeat these last 2 rows until you've used up all your yarn or made your shawl as long as you want it. Until we drop our stitches in the bind off row, it will look a lot smaller than it's going to be. It'll look probably half the width, if not more narrow than that. So you just want to continue doing this until you have the length you desire, or you've used the amount of yarn that you wanted to use. My shawl took about 1.5 balls. If you continued on and used the entire 2 balls of Be So Wild, it would even be bigger than it is now. So now we did another of our right side row, which was knit into the front and back of the first stitch, knit across all the stitches, knit into the front and back of the last stitch. So we're now up to 9 stitches on our needles. And we're going to now do our wrong side row of knit 1, purl across to the last stitch, and knit the last stitch. Okay, I'll set that down so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so that's all you need to do now for the rest of the shawl. I'm going to do a few more rows so that I can show you the bind off afterwards, but you just want to continue doing this until you have the length that you require for the type of shawl or shawlette you wanted to make. If you decide to do a different sized shawl than the one that I did in the pattern, and you can download the pattern for free on my website, what you'll need to know about the specialty bind off technique that we're going to do that drops the stitches is that you're going to need a multiple of 6 plus 3 for your total stitches in order to get the multiple to work out right. And so if you're not sure what that means, because a lot of patterns talk in terms like that, and it's very much a math term, so if you're not super mathy, let me spell it out for you. Okay, so the shawl says to end up with 63 stitches. To show you what that means for a multiple of 6 plus 3, this would be 6 times 10 repeats equals 60 plus 3. For the 21 stitches that I have here, it would be 6 times 3 equals 18 plus 3. So a multiple of 6 plus 3 is 6 times the number of repeats, and then when you get that number, you add 3 at the end. So